All right, I'm going to look at this exercise where I am calculating a grade. And first thing is there are different sheets, homework, lab, and test. So first I'm just going to go to the homework and the lab. And here's the homework tab, and that's just a simple average. So I'm going to enter the formula equals average. I spelled average correctly, average. And then average the homework score for, I guess that's Abigail Adams. And then I can copy that down. Now I want to get those are part of my overall calculation for the course grade. And so I'm going to do that calculation on the test sheet. So I've got to copy these over. I'm going to highlight this. Maybe I'm going to make this say homework average now. I'm going to copy those cells and then paste them over here. Now they're based on a calculation of some previous cells. So I don't normally, when I'm copying in Excel, I'm copying a formula, but I want to copy the results. I want to copy the values. So I'm over here, homework average, and I'm going to paste there, and I'm going to do the paste with the 1, 2, 3. I'm going to paste the values. I'm going to play the same game with the lab. So they're going to perform an average over all the lab scores. And get the thin cross and double click, copy that down. I'm going to specify this now as lab av. And copy that. And paste special, paste the values. Okay, so I have the homework average and the values and the lab average and the values. And there's probably a slicker way to do this, but I have a drop test. And so I have either two scenarios. Either you can drop one of test 1, 2, or 3, and have the final count twice because it's cumulative. Or if the final happens to be your lowest score, then it just counts like a normal test. So I'm just going to copy the score over and then copy that down. That was not what I wanted to do. Copy these over. There we go. So that just copied it as values. I could also copy it as a cell, say equals E2, and then copy the formula down. But either way, I'm just making a copy of the thing. And I could just refer to the cell E2 twice in my formula rather than have to make an explicit copy, but just makes it a little easier to think about, at least in my mind. Okay, so now I want to perform this average, but with a drop test. So there are 5 tests and I'm dropping 1. Of course, I'm dropping the lowest. So that'll be the minimum. And the way I'm going to drop the minimum is I'm going to sum up all 5 and then subtract the minimum, which will be the lowest test. And then that'll be like there are 4 tests. So this says average, but I'm not going to use an average formula because it's an average with a drop. So I'm going to sort of more explicitly perform my own average, but with the drop. So I'm summing up 5 tests, test 1, 2, 3, the final one in the copy. I'm subtracting the minimum, the same set, and then taking that whole numerator, the sum minus the minimum, that whole thing, and dividing that by 4. So that will give me an average with a dropped test. Okay, so now I have the test average and the homework average and the lab average. So now I'm ready to do the overall average. And I have to put in my weights here. The test average is worth 60%, so I'm going to multiply that by 0.06. And then the homework is worth 10%, so I'm going to multiply that by 0.1. And then the lab average is 30, so I'm going to multiply that by the lab average. So let me just check that one more time. 60% for the test, 0.6 times G2, 10% for the homework, so that's 0.1 times H2, and 0.3 times I2 for the lab average. And copy that down. Let me make some perfect student who had down here 100 for the tests, 100 for the homeworks, 100 for the lab average. And then my calculation should give 100 for that perfect student, and does. So that was just a little bit of a test here. Now I want to take these overall average scores with the appropriate weights and turn it into a letter grade. And so I have some grading scheme down here. I'm going to use a VLookup table, but you know your 3 rules for a VLookup table are: 1, that a range of grades is represented by the lowest number of the range. I have that here, that A is 94 to 100. That's number 1. Number 2 is that the numbers that you're looking up, and then the thing you want to get when you've looked up, the numbers should appear first, and I have that. And then the third thing is that the ranges should be in ascending order. I don't have that. So of the 3 things you must have for the VLookup table, I have 2 of the 3, but not all 3. And so I'm not ready to go. So I have to sort of flip this upside down. I don't have any great tricks for that, or I could come up with a trick for that, but it's more work than it's worth. So I'm just, for once, I'm just going to type. Now there is a scheme here that these are all, once I get past the F, these are all going up by 3. So I could grab the pattern here and go up. So there is some kind of pattern. So there is some kind of trick. And this was F and D plus and C minus and C. You have to watch Excel. It wants to help you by saying, oh, you previously typed a C minus, so that must be what you want, but it's not. So just be careful when you're typing these things that, you know, sometimes you need to accept Excel's help and sometimes you need to reject it. I needed to reject it there, did not, and B plus and A minus and A. Now I have all the 3 things I need for a VLookup table. The range, each range is represented by the lowest number in the range. The ranges are in ascending order, and the numbers I'm looking up are first. So I'm ready to look up my grades. So I'm going to say VLookup. There is a corresponding horizontal lookup, but this is a vertical lookup. I'm going to look up the student's overall average. I'm going to look it up in the table. I'm going to come and put $signs in there in a minute. I'm looking up 2, and then this is the one I always forget. Am I looking for an exact match or an approximate match? I'm looking for an approximate. I'm looking for it to be within the range, not to be exactly an 88. So a person doesn't need exactly 88 to get a B plus, they need 88 or higher. So that is the approximate match. Come back here and put the $signs. There's a way in which you can name the table, give the table a name, your VLookup table, and then you don't need the $signs, but then you need to go through the process of naming. I usually don't name them, but it is a different approach than some people like. And then I can copy that down, and it went a little too far on me here. Let me just clear that out. Okay, so there are the grades. This person got a 72, and that was a D+, and so on. Now, I had my fake students here. Were not very good at doing their homework, and their labs, I had very low lab scores and test scores, but that's the opposite of most of my students. They do their lab, they do their homework, and so they're going to get much higher grades than these. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you, this grade calculation.